Yes. Oh, we have to hold it this way. Let's see. Hey, everyone. So I think we're recording. Just making sure all the technology is working correctly. Let's see if I can rotate. You can't turn your phone while recording. Okay, so there we go. Oh, now I know. Oh, it did it. Hopefully it did it. Hello, hello. If anyone is on, please let me know if you can hear and if I look like I'm facing the right direction. I have my phone turned and I don't want to be sideways for the whole recording if that's how it goes. I'm not quite sure. So hello, hello. We're getting on a few minutes early just to make sure the technology is working. So if you can hear and I look normal or facing the right direction, give me some hearts or thumbs up. And then we'll give it a couple minutes and start this juniper exploration. Hi, Craig Jenkins. Welcome. Susan Kiefer, welcome, welcome. Good, good, good. If you guys can hear and or see me and I'm facing a normal direction, please let me know with the hearts or a thumbs up. And if not, I'll turn my phone around so I'm not sideways. But we'll just wait another minute here before we begin. I am at the ocean right now. I have been for the past few days, and I'm going back to New York City today. And I hear it's 91 in the city. So, yay! I hope it is brilliant and sunny where you are. And yeah, I hope this is all pointed in the right direction. So 2 p.m., there we go. It's 2 p.m. here on the East Coast. I am in Ocean City, Maryland right now, spending my last few moments. And I wanted to start off this call. We are going to be talking about the planet Jupiter and doTERRA's Zendocrine complex, more so than the gel caps that we're taking right now. But because in the cleanse, where we are in the cleanse right now, we're really focusing on the Zendocrine complex, and it's been our first week of exploring that and taking that in. I just wanted to talk a little bit about astroherbology, what that means, why it's important, and it's a little bit of a more advanced call. You don't need to know astrology to understand, but we do dive into some deeper topics around herbs and astrology, and why it's important and how you can use that as a tool when you're picking your herbs, and especially around cleanse time. And there's just some fascinating overlays between what doTERRA has created for us to cleanse with, what the planets are doing around this time of year, and then the herbs that we are taking in. So that's what I want to talk about. But first, let's do a little just breathing and exercising. If you guys have Tulsi, that's what I'm going to be using, but you can use anything that is close by just to get a little focus. So I'm going to put a drop in the palm of my hand. Tulsi basil is one of those herbs. Jupiter ruled. I have been using it a lot in this cleanse. Holy basil. I'm just going to rub it in my hands and then cup it over my face. And let's do 4 breaths. 4 counts in, 4 count hold, 4 count out. 4 count hold, 4 count in, 4 count hold, 4 count out. Okay, we'll just do 4, 4, 4, 4. Here we go. Hold it at the top. 2, 3, 4, release. 2, 3, 4. Hold it at the bottom. Inhale 4. Hold for 4. Out for 4. Hold at the bottom. Inhale. Hold. Release. 2, 3, 4. And hold. One more breath. Hold at the top. 2, 3, 4. Release. 2, 3, 4. And hold. 2, 3, 4. Great. Thank you so much for doing that with me. This is really new. It's not new information to me, but I'm starting to understand it on another level. So bear with me as we go through this. And if you have any questions, we can talk about it at the end. So why is Jupiter so important at this time? And why am I talking about it today in relation to Zendocrine? So right now in astrology, we are moving from Pisces season into Aries season, or we already have. It's happening. And even though we are going by our Western astrology calendar, it's kind of known throughout astrology that nothing is ever like only on the day it happens. It's better to think about things as a season, as running into each other. So when an event happens, like when the Sun and Jupiter had its conjunction a few days, yesterday, the 11th? 2 days ago. And we had our luckiest day of the year. It's not necessarily that day only exists on that day. You can take it as you will, a little bit before, a little bit after. The season of Jupiter takes 12 years to transit through all the zodiacs. So you're not in a rush with Jupiter. You have some time to be with Jupiter, to bring Jupiter in, to study Jupiter, to kind of digest Jupiter. And that's a really good analogy because Jupiter is a planet that governs over our liver. So obviously, as we are going through this cleanse, and we start the cleanse with cleaning out our liver, yes? So it's a wonderful correlation between astrology, the plants we have here on Earth with us, our tools, and us. And so often I drew this little diagram, so maybe it will help you understand why it's important that we pay attention to the cosmos, ourselves, and our plants. So just think of it as a triangle. And we're at the base on Earth, people and plants. We coexist here on Earth. And then up here we have planets. And we're all connected in a way. And as people, we study astrology. We study the planets that are circling above us. And those planets have influence over us, the people of this planet, right? And that's how your birth chart comes into play. So knowing your birth chart, knowing where the planets were, the day you were born, the moment you were born, has really amazing, helpful keys and influence over your life. So similar to us, the plants also have astrology. The days they were born, the days they flourish, the days they have harder days, winter time. So the planets are also swirling above them, influencing the plant kingdom, influencing us, humans. And then we have the planets up here and the study of astroherbology. So we kind of all have our studies. We have astrology for humans. We have herbology, the study of plants. And then we have astroherbology, which connects us all in this nice triangle. And then above that triangle, if you're standing in your quadrant of the triangle and you're looking straight up at the sky and you have some lavender growing beside you, you can imagine you and your lavender staring up at the planetary system, and you're all one system, influencing each other. So I just kind of wanted to put that image in your head of how this all, and it all magically lays out as we start to study astrology, herbs, and our health, and how we're affected emotionally, physically, by plants, by our astrology. So let's talk about Jupiter. Jupiter, when you think of Jupiter or you hear of Jupiter, maybe you'll hear it in your astrology, maybe somebody will bring it up like it was on the 11th, Sun conjunct Jupiter. What does that mean? So this will just give you a nice little quick class on what you can think about when you hear Jupiter next in astrology. So just like plants, planets have attributes. And these attributes help you to understand the influence, the benefits, the energies, the esoteric, the metaphysical about plants and planets. So the attribute of Jupiter is expansive. When you think of Jupiter, think of the word expansive. It is a huge, gaseous, giant planet, and it is known to give off more energy than it takes in. So when we think of expansion, right? Giving off, expanding outward. And it also has an attribute, or is known as the guru planet. And it gets this reputation because that expansiveness has to do with how it influences our mind. So expanding into higher wisdom, expanding into higher health, expanding into higher finances, career, success. In any aspect of your life where you feel like you could use expansion, you can harness in Jupiter. It reflects the sun brightly. So this is helpful when understanding that Sun and Jupiter conjunct that just happened. When the Sun and Jupiter are close enough, Jupiter reflects the vibrancy of the Sun. So you get these two power orbs together. And when they're close enough, you're going to have Jupiter reflecting all of that beautiful light from the Sun, all that power. And they really work well together. So later on when we're talking about plants, you can remember that. And once you learn about Jupiter plants, I'm going to say juniper and Jupiter, I'm going to mix those up. Once you start to learn about Jupiter plants, if you already know what what plants the Sun is ruled by, or what plants are ruled by the Sun, those are two planets, or I know one's a star, but you can combine them and they'll work even better when combining those plants together. I'm going to slow down because I maybe am almost not keeping up with myself. So welcome anybody who's jumping on. We are talking about Jupiter, the herbs ruled by Jupiter, and the attributes of this planet, so you can know a little bit more about what you're taking when we're taking our Zendocrine complex and our gel caps. But more so, I'm going to be talking about this today since we've been using it so much at the beginning of the cleanse, and we'll continue to use it. So Jupiter, the planet, is associated with generosity, abundance, higher wisdom, success, expansiveness. Remember that, expansiveness. It allows us to have this expansive outlook, increasing our access to resources. So if you are feeling like you have a goal, you know what steps you're going to take next, but you feel maybe like you don't know where to go next because you need resources, or you need help, or you need a team, or you need money, or you need any of these tools that will take us to the next step, Jupiter is a planet that is expressing and influencing those things. So look to Jupiter. And then so there, if I am, let's say, let me think of an example. If I am looking for a job and I have so many of the qualifications and I've taken the interview and they're thinking about if they want to hire me or not, and I'm really hoping like, oh my gosh, I get the job. But I need like one more thing to get me through the month before I'll know if I get the job. And I need more resources to get me through the month. And I'm worrying about those things. I'm worrying about, am I going to get it? Are my finances going to be okay? This is where you can start to elicit the plants of Jupiter to help guide you through this time of expansiveness. Because expanding can be scary, changing can be scary. And the plants of Jupiter and Jupiter's energy can help you through that time. So I might look to the plants that are ruled by Jupiter or have Jupiterian attributes to help me through that time. So Jupiter's effect on us as humans on this earth and our anatomy. So every planet has attributes to our anatomy. And Jupiter rules our liver, our pancreas, our production of insulin, our adrenaline system. And it's one of those planets, I'm just going to say it right off the bat because I'm pretty sure we all know what adaptogens are. Jupiter has so many adaptogens in it. And just think of that. It is this ever-expanding. And when you think of something expanding, it expands in all directions. So sometimes, and that's how adaptogens work, right? Like we have one problem over here, like adrenal fatigue. And so Jupiter plants might help us address and pump up our adrenal function. And at the same time, it's going to help us sleep. So it has these kind of things that polarize, but Jupiter's energy expands in all directions, as does adaptogens. But the areas that Jupiter hits in our body is also pretty expansive. It goes from our pituitary gland all the way down to our lower chakras. A lot to do with our energy systems, our subcutaneous fat tissue, our spleen, our digestive glands. But really big, it's probably most known as ruling over the liver. So we have definitely been focusing on that as we start our cleanse, and we are finishing, I think today is day 8. So we've completed a whole week, and I'm sure you have been feeling the effects of your Zendocrine complex, which is packed full of Jupiterian herbs. It's a really beautiful, I don't think doTERRA has an astrologer on their team, but it's pretty amazing to look into the herbs that they use. And it's just is very even more confirming, I think, when I am going and exploring and researching what herbs I want to be using in a specific season that will have extraordinary impact during that time. And it's just, it feels like a beautiful miracle, but it really is just like the plants, us, and the planets all lining up together. So in medical astrology, which is another type of astrology that really just deals with healing our human bodies, in medical astrology, Jupiter can be associated with blood-related diseases. So depending on whether we're going through a transit that is having influence over us that is either easy or maybe a little rough, it's going to change how Jupiter is affecting us. So when we're going through a rough transit with Jupiter, astrologically, what can happen here in our anatomical systems can be where disease pops up, or where we maybe become weak in one of those sections. So that's a good time to pay attention if you know you already have weaknesses in these parts of the body. When we're going through a rough transit, if we're far away from Jupiter, the farther we get, or we have a square, you might want to pay extra attention to certain areas of the body that Jupiter is ruling over. So if we have a rough transit with Jupiter, they can be associated with blood-related diseases, abscesses, strokes, and cancer. And on the flip side, when we're going through a really nice, beautiful transit with Jupiter, which is what is happening right now in our astrology, even though April 11th was our official conjunct with the sun, again, it takes 12 years for Jupiter to go through all the zodiac, so you have a bit of time, a buffer before and after an astrological event to take advantage of the energy. So right now we're going through a nice, smooth, beautiful relationship with Jupiter. You can look up your sun sign, and you can look up where Jupiter lands on your birth chart and see how your sun and Jupiter are interacting. That can be something fun to do after the live if you want to keep exploring astrology and astroherbology. So, on our physical body, right? We just went over a few ways Jupiter influences our anatomy. Now, emotionally, Jupiter, again, I said it's very expansive, right? So it hits kind of like all the parts of polarity. So Jupiter can rule emotionally over a sense of depression and leaning toward depression. And then its other opposite side is expansiveness into joy, a lack of direction or on the right path. Feelings of that like success and good things are out of reach for you, and the feeling of success, good luck, goodness abounds in your life. Jupiter can have the feeling of that like relief is unavailable, and at the same time you feel extremely like a time of just complete relief in life. So these aspects can be present in Jupiter, right? We're always thinking Jupiter expansiveness. So anytime you might be feeling a sense of depression, a lack of direction, feeling like good things are out of reach, is a really good time to start interacting with your Jupiter herbs. And right now in our cleanse, we are on April 13th. So we have just gone from our Pisces season and entered into Aries season, right? Pisces is ruled by water, and we have just entered a fire sign, Aries, the fire of spring. So what those two bring are water and fire. Jupiter at this time, Jupiter represents, Jupiter is a fire sign. It's ruled by Sagittarius, and its qualities are warm and wet, which match up with the qualities of our season right now, which match up with us cleansing our livers at this time, taking this time to be cleansing our anatomy, and making sure our body and our anatomy is lining up with the season. So our seasons right now have elements of warm and wet. The farther we are, you know, if you're feeling dry and cold, which you might be from winter, we are cleansing to bring it back to warm and wet, to align ourselves with the Pisces and the Aries season. And Jupiter, herbs and plants and the qualities of those plants are warm and wet. It's one of the ways we can figure out how a plant is a Jupiter plant as opposed to a Saturn plant or a moon plant or a sun plant. And that's a whole nother class, is starting to learn how you can identify certain plants with certain planets. Today we're just going to go with, we know we have our list of Jupiter ruled plants, and mostly every single one in the Zendocrine is ruled by Jupiter. And we're going to talk about specifically a few of those. So I hope that makes sense. Does anybody have any questions thus far, or something I said that did not make sense? Okay, and I also think I may be a few seconds ahead of you guys. So, but anyway, we can continue this discussion in the comment section on the Facebook Live. So, herbs and plants represented by Jupiter. So, as I said, the attributes of plants that are ruled by Jupiter are going to be warm, moist, adaptogenic. They are going to have a ton of vitality and a ton of longevity. And I know we can kind of attribute those aspects to a lot of plants we're using, but this is specifically for Jupiter and that adaptogenic quality. And one of the reasons there are so many adaptogens ruled by Jupiter is when you look into the astrology of Jupiter, it has quite paradoxical transits. The way it travels is quite erratic. And so it's very interesting that here on Earth, the plants that are ruled by Jupiter also have that ability to hold and expand into paradoxes. Yeah. So these plants are here and helpful to revitalize and cleanse, which is exactly what we're doing with our Zendocrine complex, cleansing the liver, the pancreas, and supporting the adrenals. Certain herbs of Jupiter, which you should recognize if you've read the back of the Zendocrine bottle, but I have some other ones mixed in here too, but you'll notice if you read the back of your Zendocrine. Herbs of Jupiter that are very well known are dandelion, ashwagandha, tulsi basil, pine pollen, which I love. It is raining down here in pine pollen. And I know it's very controversial because a lot of people have experienced allergy symptoms with pine pollen, but it's also one of the most amazing adaptogenic, nutritive plant material for us and our bodies. And it's raining from the skies right now. Clove, cardamom, tamarind, yams, slippery elm. Those are just a few. There are very long lists and lists that will, some lists, they'll be very different from other lists. And the study of astroherbology, I believe, is just starting to lift off. For a long time, there have been lists of plants that are associated with the planets, but never the reasons why. And just around now, I believe we're really starting to explore and finding connections and starting discussions about why certain plants are associated with certain planets. And that discussion is so interesting, and I'm so excited to finally get to know why some of these herbs are related to these planets. And there's now a system developed in order to kind of more scientifically go through and check off, does it have this attribute? Well, what is the environment it grows in? How does that associate with the planet? How do the attributes of how the plant interacts with our systems? How does the plant grow? How does it behave? What does it love? All of these things kind of help us categorize. But again, I'll put that on hold because that's another direction. But back to Zendocrine complex. So in our Zendocrine complex, under the herbs that are specifically put in it for our liver support are barberry, milk thistle, burdock root, clover flower, dandelion, garlic, and red clover. And I went through, and every single one of those herbs that is put specifically in this blend for our liver support are ruled by Jupiter. Burdock root is probably the most well-known liver tonic. And if you also look at the physical body of these plants, you will notice they do have things in common. So if you go out in nature, and these are also things that grow wild everywhere, they're accessible to the people. These are beautiful, wonderful plants that have become known as annoying weeds, which is great. All the more medicine for us, right? But milk thistle, burdock grows everywhere and has these massive, beautiful, folding, broad, expansive leaves. When you think of dandelion greens, kind of the bottom of the dandelion has that beautiful, expansive circle of nutrient-dense leaves surrounding it. And then, of course, the ever-expanding dandelion flower. But when you come across a lot of these plants, you will notice rhubarb, very similar looking to burdock, the leaf, very broad, expanding. And also when you look at the roots below, burdock, dandelion. If you have ever gone outside and tried to dig these up for your medicine, you know how hard it is to get the whole root out. They dive down into the earth so intensely. So they have these massive roots that just go straight down. And then of course they have little tiny ones coming off, but the expansiveness of the top of the plant growing up toward the sun and then the root diving down into the ground, they're extremely hard to extract from the earth. and they're also plants that come back the next year. So if you don't pull up the root, burdock, dandelion, and a bunch of other ones on my list, if you don't bring up the root, they die off, but they expand back year after year after year. I want to look into that further, that idea of plants that regrow every year, if that has something to do with what planet they align with. I think it might. It's an inkling, but we'll have to check it out. I'll have to check it out later, or maybe somebody can help me investigate that. But if you look at that, and if you haven't seen burdock roots or dandelion roots, maybe that's something you can do on your commitment to moving your body, getting outside, getting sunshine. Go explore a dandelion and see how hard it is to get that entire root up out of the ground. So where do we go from here? Anybody have any questions here? I also want to know how long I've been going so I don't overwhelm. So that was a half an hour of Jupiter information and Jupiter herbs. Obviously, Zendocrine has a lot more in it than just the liver support. And online on the doTERRA website, when you go to look at the product description, they have all the plants that are in this complex listed under what organ they intended it to help. So I'm just reading you the liver support list. And there are many more. Hello. Janaline, Michelle, welcome. But I think I gave you a pretty big brain dump right there. Maybe we should just stop there. And I want to go back and find my list of the other herbs and organs. And a lot of the herbs that are listed for other organs in the Zendocrine complex, they're just repeats. A lot of them, as plants do, plants cover a lot of bases. And they usually are not just affecting one part of us. And that's an aspect of their adaptogenic qualities and their expansive qualities. Yeah, so for kidneys, which are also affected by Jupiter, we have rhubarb, burdock again, clover again, and dandelion again. For the colon, we have psyllium, rhubarb, acacia, and marshmallow. I love that marshmallow's in there. Marshmallow, when we talk about wet and warm, marshmallow is a great herb for bringing in moisture, wet. elements. Then for the lungs, we have osha and safflower. And for the skin, which goes right back to our liver has a huge influence on what our skin is doing. We have kelp, milk thistle, again, milk thistle's on the liver list as well. We have burdock again, clover flower again, and garlic again. So our liver and skin, which if you notice on the daily moon updates I put on the Facebook Live every day, I list the body parts affected by the moon at that time. I believe liver and skin are always together. But there we are, Zendocrine Complex. How have you guys been doing on this? Have you noticed a difference? If you have noticed a difference, what is it? Can you describe it? I have been feeling a sense of like, I would say before the cleanse, I kept saying to my boyfriend, I feel like I can't take enough showers. I felt dirty all the time, and not just like on the outside dirty, like everything I was eating, all the pollution around me, all the air, everything that I was putting in my system just felt like it wasn't cleansing me. And so I was really looking forward to this cleanse. And immediately after I started taking this, I finally had this sense of like, oh, I'm clearing out, I'm cleansing. I really got that energy right away. Last year I did the cleanse for the first time, and it took me maybe 2 weeks to get that feeling. I had cut out sugar before the cleanse for a few months, so maybe I had gotten a little ahead of the game. And maybe that's why it's a bit different this year. I was on a slightly different path, but I am loving, and I don't think I'm going to go off of it when we finish our cleanse. I am loving it so much. But please comment here about what you have been noticing or feeling. And even if you can't necessarily attribute it directly to this, because we've been doing other beautiful things while we're cleansing as well. But these are the big changes for me in my cleanse. These are the things that I can go back and be like, well, I did change this and this. And I am taking the Zendocrine and the Zendocrine gels. And we have one more week just a few days. We just have like 3 more days before we change up what we're doing. So just kind of reflect back over this last 8 days. And specifically write down, you could journal about it or comment it here, specifically what you have felt with this change, with this liver detox, with this Jupiter influence during your cleanse. So thank you guys so much for coming in and listening. Please still feel free to invite people to our cleanse. Even if they didn't start, they can start a week late. We want to get as many people cleansing during this beautiful, influential time and be here to support. So thank you all again, and have a beautiful April 13th.